These places are set up, it's stored with our money, they're stocked with supplies we paid for, enough to stay down there for 200 to 300 years at least. At least. They are expecting something very bad that's going to make the surface world uninhabitable to occur. And they're so sure that it's going to happen that they've stripped the resources of this country to build this underground sanctuary just for themselves. We're not going to be allowed in. The elite are going to be in there, the people that control the military, that control the intelligence agencies, head of the Illuminati, and the people that they need to serve their needs. They've got hyper modern medical facilities, they've got cities with malls in them, completely empty. They've got people already living there in some of these places. They've got everything that you can imagine. They've got warehouses full of food. They've got their ability to produce their own food. They've got warehouses full of commodities, weapons. They've got ships. They've got planes. They've got, you name it. You'll never get in these places. And they are expecting to lock us out and leave us here to die. That's the plan.
"Oh, shut up, silly woman," said the reptile with a grin. "You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in."
Direct overhead, black and white coming in. Focus is good in the summertime when there's heat. Los Angeles Police Department gang stalker for uploading Reptilian shapeshifter movies to YouTube. Hoping for a stalker. You see he changed course. You see that? You see that? He's gonna circle around. Looks like he's gonna circle around. Yep. Here we go. Here we go. This is a stalk. This is a stalk for uploading Reptilian shapeshifter movies to YouTube and exposing our reptilian overlords. Look at these circling around. Think about what the purpose might be for circling around right here. Couldn't be there's a person who's discovered the reptilian shapeshifters among us. Could it be? No. So see that? You see how he circled around? Did you get that? What that movement was? So he came up right over here like this. He's in the back like this. Circled around, and there he goes. Stuff of black and white coming up slow. The activity's really picked up, and they are apparently pissed about something. Last night they buzzed me for a full, or at least they buzzed around my area for a full, 15 minutes around 4 a.m. And this is a entering an establishment buzz. So as I was entering the library, they gave me a buzz when their activity seems to be on high, as though like they go into kind of like an alert mode. Alright, so we just got a security intersect, so that's where they come at me right as I'm passing by, and then takes and follows me out, so as to give me a security guard escort. But it's no surprise, the devil can do this. You see, it's only a surprise to us because we live in a world where what you've got is humans are given a situation of non-belief.
In the police station, when he was being held down and the sergeant came over, he said the sergeant shapeshifted in front of him, turned into a reptile, and then came back to human, and then shapeshifted again and returned.
Okay, real quick, for those of you who don't know, this is what is called gang stalking or organized stalking. It is when you are blacklisted with the U.S. world government, which is already in place, as I found out, or as Jimmy Paine would like to say, come to find out. So there is a world government already in place, and when I discovered these reptilian shapeshifters in video, which at first I thought was lunacy, I uploaded a study that I did as a follow-up study that someone else did on the movie The Matrix, and when I did so, I had police and other unmarked helicopters buzzing me day and night, that is, buzzing my house. I had police and other unmarked vehicles following me on the street. I know it sounds like crazed paranoia. It would to me if it didn't happen to me, because it took me a full 60 days, 2 months, before I could really accept. I mean, I knew it was going on immediately, because like the first day I started getting buzzing when I uploaded my first video to YouTube. All of a sudden there's this helicopters buzzing up above my place, and I'm like, what is going on here? I thought it was a drug bust. Turns out no, it was because of what I uploaded to YouTube. Okay, social media, just a silent movie that I did with text and arrows pointing out the similarities and the odd things that I found in video, because I knew something about digital imaging, and I knew that what I was seeing was not some sort of codec error, transmission error, refresh rate error, compression error, whatever in video. Okay, so I saw claws, fangs, tiles, situations of color that didn't make sense, but when you can see beast features, okay, claws, okay, fangs, rows of tiles on people's faces, that's when you start being sure that there's something real there. And when I did, I got helicopters buzzing me day and night. They've been doing that for 11 years now. It's psychological warfare to try to minimize, isolate, and destroy in every way. What they ideally, this has been cataloged across the board, they want to drive you crazy so that you commit suicide or you commit a crime. Okay, and they figure correctly. They don't do it because it doesn't work. Some people say, oh, you can just ignore it, blah blah blah. No, they don't do it because it doesn't work. And what they do, ideally, they keep it up with the same tactic, the same pressure year after year. They just keep it up and keep it up. If they can't kill you immediately, which they did in my situation 3 times. They sent assassins to kill me, and in at least 2 of those occasions, I know that the assassins themselves perished, by which they knew that they could not do that to me, and that has to do with the protection that I have from the Lord to do whatever it is that I'm doing here, probably in large part exposing these serpents so that people in the end times who wish to continue in their sin can begin to understand what the consequences are, which is that they eat us.
They transport bodies, body parts, and astral humans to Mars and to Orion, and they traffic in these. It's a big, big commerce.
The finest and the most pure form of louche came from pre-adolescent children.
This is the first time I got what they do. We're going to keep these humans as slaves, and when we get tired of them, we're going to hang them and eat them. That was the first time I really got it, what this eating. This wasn't just about energy or sucking energy. This was about literally chopping them to pieces and eating them.
Alpha Draconis reptilians eat children and eat humans.
And she likes to call Earth the buffet, and she said that she ate about 12 different humans when she was visiting here.
But they were basically doing a blood ritual, and they were drinking blood and stuff. And these reptilians saw that I walked in, and they were like, hey, they were like, have them leave, or basically they were talking about eating me next.
Those people in there that you think you're protecting, they are killing the children. They have been doing it for hundreds of years. Over 100,000 children went missing in the UK alone last year. Did you hear about all them?
And then you would have a pile where they would tear their heads off and put the headless bodies into a corner, and then you would have another pile where they were feeding.
Okay, and it is biblical. Okay, God says to the serpent, dust shall you eat all the days of your life, on your belly you shall go, does not mean a snake on the ground. It was a bipedal reptilian that spoke with Eve, and she was familiar with him enough so that when he came up to her and said, hey, did God say should you eat from that tree or not? What's the big deal? she was used to him. Okay, so she didn't freak out and run, ah, it's a lizard man. Okay, no, she was used to him in the garden. So at some point she was familiar with this being, which means that probably his kind freely walked about. And so one of them was probably given the task by Satan or something else. Some people believe that it was Satan. Maybe it was. I do not know. What we do know is that she was approached, and then that's how man fell. And then what we have now is a situation where, as the scripture also says, that we will be at enmity with these beings because guess what? They eat us, okay? Now, just think about this, okay? If you make a friend of God, which is only through Jesus, are you going to be eaten alive? Are your children going to be eaten alive by these things?
If you're watching this, it's not too late. Say this prayer now. Father in heaven, please save my soul by the work of your Son Jesus on the cross, and show me your pure words in the authorized King James Bible. Okay, so I've noticed that some people are dismayed by paranormal topics. I run into them all the time. Nice people, I'm not saying, but there's something that you should realize, okay, that there's going to be a certain man that you're going to run into, okay? If you're of the living, if you get a chance, well, living or not, actually, you may very, very well likely either run into him or, you know, see him and see what he has to say, okay? And that person is someone who very much likes paranormal things. And then you might say to yourself, well, you know, I'm not really interested in that, and therefore that person isn't of any interest to me. Okay? Now, the only problem there is that this particular person, as you might guess by now, happens to be the Lord. Okay? So, saying that you have no interest in this person or wanting to associate with that person in his unpleasant paranormal topic isn't going to work out so well, is what I'm trying to convey here. And so I realized that God made all kinds of different people with different interests, and not everyone has the same interests, and there's a lot of, I think, decent people who are dismayed and don't want to hear about anything having to do with outer space in any sort of serious venue. Like if you mention Star Trek or something, a lot of people, they can tolerate that. In fact, they like it. But if you put that in the context of, you know what, there might actually be real extraterrestrials, and they might have actually already come here, and that might be what all this hubbub about flying saucers is. Oh, all of a sudden it's, you know, I'm just, no, I don't want to hear about it. You know, that's not, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Okay. Once again, just I'm telling you as my potential friends that if you want my advice, I would at least open your mind to not being against it, but actually realize probably why, in my opinion, the Lord finds it interesting, because a lot of people would like to know more about our reality. It's a mystery, okay? If like nothing else, you know, a Sherlock Holmes mystery. Instead of people who died and trying to figure out who killed them, it's what's the nature of our reality. And a big piece of that would be what lies beyond our atmosphere. Okay, what's beyond that blue sky? Okay. Now, you guys may have heard, it just reminds me to tell you again that what the angel Azrael told me is that the underworld has some kind of agreement. I didn't know or find out who that agreement was with. I'm assuming the angelic or the angelic powers that are righteous and or God himself, which should pretty much be the same purpose. But the underworld, that is Satan, the demons, the fallen angels, the beasts, whatever, they have an agreement to project something that is not the reality. It's actually a projection that we're looking at. It's not what's really out there, okay? And what Azrael said was out there, okay? This is him saying this. I haven't obviously been able to confirm any of this, and I have not found other sources saying this, by the way, okay? But if you heard this being talk, he was occupying my Anna's body, okay? And this thing about body swapping, it's not just all demonic, oh, it's all evil. I know. We as Christians are especially paranoid about that, being a deception, being demonic, and you shouldn't pay attention, close your eyes, don't even look, okay? But there again, God says, surely I, God, scorn the scorners, okay? Meaning that before you poo-poo something, might want to just listen and see, especially if it's someone you've been listening to for a little while, and you can see that they are at least biblical, if not right, on all of their points, because as I have found, not all Christians agree on all points, and even one little point of difference can be a cause of bitter contention, oh so bitter, which is why I don't even bother to get into theological discussions with people I meet on the street or just in public anymore. I actually don't, because of how bitter one little disagreement can be. It's ridiculous. But I understand. See, once I began to figure out what's happening here, the scripture says they will no longer be offended in the kingdom. And that gives me a contrast by which to compare and understand what might be going on here. That we are in a situation where offenses can so easily occur that it's almost, well, it is scripted, it's artificial. We're here to be offended and to offend. Get used to it, friends. God is a God of truth, okay? He wants you to know the truth. He wants you to be unified with the truth, okay? So, now, if someone who you listen to, and once again, we don't always agree on all points. I know you all agree with me on Trump, right? That's why there was over 200 unsubscribers and continuing, okay? So a lot of people saw that, the other movie I uploaded with Trump fraud. Oh boy. Woo-wee! A lot of people, shed a lot of people. Doesn't bother me, like I said, this whole 11 years that I've been on this whole thing, uploading the reptilian shapeshifters and becoming blacklisted and targeted individual and all that stuff, it's been like at least one episode a year, if not more, of something that I upload that offends Christians. But I would just say, now, the Lord said this, but I would say similarly, those that are with the Lord, the same thing applies. Those that are not offended in me are my friends that will make it, that will succeed in this whole miserable lot of being a Christian. Don't want to badmouth it. I'm just pointing out the truth, because actually that's scriptural. The scripture says that we are the most miserable of all men in the church, the early church writings. Okay, because of the fact that it's like you lose on both sides in a certain kind of way. You lose with the sinners, you lose with the fellow godly. So that's, I think that's what he was pointing to. I'll have to look at that scripture and see exactly what he was saying there. But what I would point to my friends is this. Look, okay, hard to say this without making it sound like I have a personal relationship with God. Okay, some people like to say that as Christians. I am telling you, I do not. Okay, he does not talk to me. He says nothing except to reprove me or restrict me, for which I am grateful. I do not mean to sound like bitter towards it, although probably I am in my stupid, foolish heart. But in my public face and in my conscious mind, I will tell you, whom he loves, he chastens, okay? So we should be grateful every day for another chance, even if we sin again and we get reproved and we learn another lesson, even if we'll forget it and commit it 10 more times before we finally learn our lesson, or we're done with that particular violation or sin or experience that we need in this world of sins, violations, and experiences of dismay. Okay? Now, some people might think that, or feel that, and they may be right. I like to keep an open mind, maybe they're right. But when I post information about the secret space program or stuff from the Super Soldier Talk in particular, like people that I think are very, very interesting, Peggy Kane, I'm sorry, Peggy Kane wasn't on the Super Soldier Talk channel. She was a fascinating paranormal revelator, which I think they might have silenced because I didn't hear, or maybe she just didn't make any more videos. It doesn't have a channel. I would think I would have heard about her, but who knows? You know, Satan keeps people compartmentalized, isolated, so we don't know what's actually happening. But I would say that and that my interest in that is more than just, I would say it is personal, but at the same time I think that our things, and the things of God, it is both our personal interest and keeping with trying to say something useful. Now, of course, we don't know, but Jimmy Paine, I believe, is the real deal, and this information, similar to the William Tompkins information, is just mind-blowing and very much educating in our reality here that we're really dealing with. You know, who's really running the show. I mean, we know Satan is the chief governor of the world that the Lord has put in charge. So that's what we've got. But it's interesting to also learn about the realities that are going on. For instance, we learned from William Tompkins that very interesting thing about education that matches with my experience, which is that it was designed to make people stupid and close-minded. So you got your big fat degree and you got your big career, and they do, of course, teach you the real stuff that you need to whether it's a doctor or a lawyer or a mechanical engineer or whatever. But they, at the same time, teach against some of the key principles of keeping an open mind to things that you haven't heard before, so that you are a closed-minded scorner, okay? They want us stupid. They want us caught up in that conservative or liberal dialectic, so that you don't notice what they're doing behind the scenes. Okay? That's really important to understand, and I believe that any of my friends who are going to make it are going to be able to wrap their head around that, to know that it's a complex situation where what we might think to be behind, like for instance the Trump thing. I mean, I was thinking, the only reason they could be hating on him so much is because he really is. Maybe he's not perfect, he's got some things, but at least he's on, basically the right side. Because look at the other side. It's so horrible and bad. And then why would they be persecuting him with all this stuff? How could it possibly be, because he... But that phony assassination attempt, and then that phony phone call that he makes to Bobby Kennedy Jr., in which you also learn that he is fake and there are no viable candidates. Too bad Vivek Ramaswamy dropped out. And now I'm not even voting, as I told you. They're all fake. But that alerted me. That assassination attempt, I didn't have to see the brilliant stuff that the guy from A Call for an Uprising said, and I reposted, did a little editing and reposted. I didn't see all the stuff, but I knew, as you saw from that, I posted that movie, you know, oh, genuine, that's so genuine, that whole thing with the Trump raising his fist, the American flag, and the Secret Service around him. It was so heroic. Oh, it's so real, so genuine. It just, oh, I mean, God, it really happened. So, but see, that was so obvious that I now realize that all of that. See, and I kind of halfway thought that, but I don't know, I'm not sure, because, you know, all these people coming against Trump, you know, what about the lawsuits? Come on, and he had to pay that woman. He definitely didn't pork 300 grand. Oh, he definitely didn't screw her. Oh, but he still had to pay the 300 grand, man. That's so horrible, you know. And then with that recent data dump that the Supreme Court or whatever that had to release about the Epstein files, they had to, you know, somebody filed for a freedom of information. They finally had to dish out. And then there was, turns out that Trump was a lot more, unfortunately. Look, we all love Trump. We don't want to say anything, but turns out that he was on Lolita Express a lot more than people thought. And there was more visits to Epstein Island, and there was more video and photo released of Trump palling around with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And of course, it's just he was unfortunately caught up with them, and you know, we have to look beyond that, you know. And then there's the whole thing, but you know, come on, it's Trump. God saved him from that bullet. Oh, it was divine providence. Praise God, it was divine providence. God, that was so real. The Lord saved him. Oh, yes, it's so real. Okay, I hate to state the obvious, but just once again, you do now all realize what I'm saying. My opinion is that all that stuff, the lawsuits against Trump, the this or that against him, the fake news, you know, bashing him, all that is just so that we'll be fooled. He's a deep state reptilian insider all along, and they do this. This is a reptilian tactic that humans don't understand. Remember what that lady said from the Body Snatchers, Susan Reed. We won't understand, humans won't understand the way reptilians think if we try to think of it from a human perspective. They do things that we don't get why, okay? And so it seems ridiculous that they would spend all this time and effort just to prop up someone as an enemy, when in fact all along he was a friend the whole time, with complete unity of command. I say again, complete unity of command from guess who? Yeah, okay. Just be aware of my opinion about that. I realize others may have a different opinion, and he has to be on the outside. There's no way it can all be fake. All right, now that we got the scorners out of the way, let's talk about this latest unbelievable revelation by Jimmy Paine. That's his pseudonym, by the way, of course. But yeah, he was a little bit irritated with old James Rink on Super Soldier Talk channel when he was giving his interview. He's like, no, James, no, back out of that. James, you're jerking the screen around too much. He's like, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find my bunch of jerking the screen around too much. Okay, no, I'm sorry, I'm making a little fun of him. He's a great guy, okay. But, and by the way, I mean, this is monumentally important revelation, guys. Okay, what I wanted to say, though, that I kind of missed it the first time I was listening to this. It really helps with this important information to listen to it a second time. because what I didn't understand from the first one was that how the mission essentially went down is this, okay, from his perspective, okay, because he said that there were things about it he didn't understand because there were unmarked lunar modules that were already there on the moon when he got there that he didn't know what was going on because it was beyond what they had told him was going on, okay? But from his perspective, it was 3 missions at once: Apollo 19, Apollo 20, and Apollo 21, apparently with either 1 or 2 people on the craft, but it looks like Jimmy Paine himself was on the craft alone, but there's a lot of detail he doesn't go into here, okay? So it's a lot gets skipped over in this, but basically the mission that he was on, so, okay, how it starts out is Jimmy Paine he's working doing some transfer of goods using jets or airplanes, whatever, and then delivering stuff, you know, for the government agencies basically that he's working for, okay? So he's delivering stuff, and then somebody says to him, hey, why don't you take and apply for this one job over at NASA? He says, okay. So he applies. He doesn't really know exactly what he's applying for. One thing very much leads to another in this. He doesn't go into any detail about what all happens in between, except for a few mentions of training in pools. You know, astronauts train underwater. So some mention of that. But then basically he's on a ship going to the moon with 2 other ships. So 3 ships total that he knows about, that they're telling him about, and that he, you know, knew that he was going with. And I don't know, like, he doesn't talk about when they launched or, you know, whatever, but basically pretty much at the same time, it sounded like to me anyway. So 3 of those Apollo type rockets, which were actually the V rockets that von Braun was working on, and he says they didn't even paint them because the paint would be a lot of extra weight. So, and these were Black Ops missions, so they're totally off the books. And by the way, for you African Americans watching, there was a interesting note about that. Actually, the first African American in space was not this one person later in, I guess it was 94, something like that, 1994, and it was actually in a Black Ops mission, and you can see her sitting with Gerald Ford and some other people with the Apollo 20 insignia in the background and a Russian flag. This was a collaboration with the Russians. So so all that was going on, and by the way, she was I forget what her name was there, maybe I'll put it up the screen, but she was her specialty was infectious diseases, because they knew that they were going to be and they got her from the Congo, by the way. So she was from the Congo, according to Jimmy Paine, and because they were going to be going on an alien ship, they knew they might have contact with alien, you know, life of some kind, and they might contract a disease of some kind. So anyway, they go, and what Jimmy explains in his recital there to James Rink on the Super Soldier Talk channel, talking about his Apollo 20 mission, he said that so basically he kind of skips ahead of all the training and everything, goes right to the fact that, you know, he's coming to the moon, and he's passing, and as he's passing over the moon, this is on the dark side of the moon, he sees one of the craft, and he's confused by it because it appeared, he said it was rolling, and he was kind of confused by the situation. Anyway, what he describes is coming upon a crime scene, basically, and it looks like the Americans and the Russians got into a fight or something, and he says somebody took a like one of those pickaxes that they use to break up the rocks, you know, to get rock samples, took it to the interior of one of the ships, because when he got out, put on a spacesuit, got out, was walking on the moon and everything, and he comes up to one of the ships that was also confusing, because he knew about the 2 other ones that were going with him, Apollo 19 and 20, but he didn't know about this other one that was unmarked, because it was in addition to those 2 ships that he knew about. But So there was a Russian cosmonaut with him, and then some other Russian official that was not like a professional cosmonaut, and so forth and so on. But in any case, some other people had apparently killed themselves, or killed each other rather, and because there was a big bloody mess in one of the Apollo landing modules when he went into it, and the astronauts were dead, and there was, you know, their helmets were cracked and they were dead, and then another guy had ran off into a crater. And he died in the crater, because you're not supposed to go in the crater, because he says when you go down there it's so cold you start to freeze. And so another one ran off and died, and Jimmy Paine found his body and dragged it up and everything. And so he sees all this going on, and then finally he runs into another one of the lunar modules that has some living guys in it, and he knocks on the door. They let him in. And there inside the craft is Mona, or what they call Mona Lisa, the alien. This alien chick that looks like Mayan, but she has like this third eye thing, you know, the chick with those poles on her face and everything. It's mind blowing now to see, after all these years, that I originally saw those pictures, and then I saw that whole complex movie they made about that guy who comes on camera and says, yeah, I made the whole thing up, this is how I did it, I made the models and everything. They really don't want people to believe in this stuff, guys. They really don't. So anyway, he gets to the ship with the two guys, comes inside, and there's the alien chick, and she's still asleep, but they do all this, you know, while they're there. They start working on her, and they take the poles off her face, and she's solid like wood, like she's hard as wood, like hard as a rock, and but she comes back to life actually, and but she only wakes up for a little while, and then she goes back to sleep, like goes back to hibernation, because there was no air in the capsule apparently. But they actually have some real photos and some pictures of her, the writing, that alien writing. Personally, I think it's that they were attacked by aliens, not that those guys went insane or got into a big fight, because that's what Jimmy Paine was kind of saying, that not that the aliens thing, but what he was saying was that he thought it was that the Russians and the Americans got into it. But see, I think that there's a force, whether it's the reptilians or somebody else, they don't want us on the moon. So they may have mind controlled them, because think about it, that doesn't make sense. First of all, the Americans are with the Russians on a joint mission anyway. The Russians insisted that the Russian symbol, the sickle, you know, the sickle and hammer of the Russians, because they said that they didn't paint the ships, but because to save the weight, but the Russians insisted that they paint that Russian flag symbol on there. But if they were in a joint mission, then they wouldn't have gotten into a fight so bad that they couldn't reconcile it. You know, I think they would. I mean, you know, if they had some major disagreement about something, okay. But I mean, you know, they're cooperating in a life or death situation. It's highly unlikely that they would be so pissed off at each other that they would kill each other in that situation. Because he said that he opened the hatch on one of those ships, and there was blood everywhere, like on everything, like somebody had exploded a bomb on somebody, and then in zero gravity the blood just went everywhere inside the ship, and somebody else took, like I said, one of those pickaxes and just tore up the entire inside of the lunar module. And he doesn't make, in that whole talk, he doesn't make any alluding or description of how that might have been an outside force, and probably was not those astronauts going at it with each other, okay? Almost no matter what, in my opinion. We're getting a buzz, or a helicopter flying overhead, randomly, here we go. Silver and blue LAPD. Now, I think there's no question that the reptilians, okay, probably the same, similar, or the same serpents of the Garden of Eden, whatever, reptilians and others that live here that need to feed off of human flesh and do, so they're eating our kids and everything. They don't want us to know about the extraterrestrials and that ancient alien ship on the moon. And by the way, according to Mona, another important fact, because he's psychically in tuned, Mona, by the way, that's the name of the alien Mayan-looking lady that he got off the craft. I said woke up for a little bit and then went back to sleep. So she came off of the big ship, okay? And by the way, he doesn't go into a lot of stuff of when he's in the ship, except that he sees these 100-foot tall vines, these plants that he calls vampire creepers, because they saw on a CCTV camera that they had filming that whole scene over a period of time. They fast forwarded and saw that these plants were moving. They do move, and he says that's why they called them vampire creepers. And they excrete some kind of little fluid that they called golden tears, and that it had healing properties. So even if you're fought in every place, you can choose to not give up. So if you combine the information from William Tompkins about what they really encountered when they went to the moon, remember what his take on it was, which matches what some other people were saying, I believe Alex Collier and somebody else, is that when they went up there, the reptilians and whoever else, I don't know, the Greys, said, actually every square inch of the moon is owned, and you can't come up here, you can't build a base here now. But apparently then later they went back and they made a base in because the Germans had made a deal with the Dracos, according to rumor. I mean, we don't know any of this stuff, it's all highly nebulous, but I think there's some truth to that. It sounds like it has the ring of truth, because we wonder why the Second World War went the way it did when the Germans, see, we know that they went to Antarctica, New Schwabenland, and then after the war, the inside forces, probably the same people that funded both sides of the war, they just stop acting like they're enemies for a second, come together and say, okay, yeah, here, and then we're just doing all this stuff here. And everything else that we're hearing about the war and this country against that country and all this stuff is just a fictional BS. Helicopter slowing down as we are right here. Looks like a direct overhead buzz. Of course, they're always aware of my location, but that's a direct overhead. Circling around. And think about it, there's another reason they wouldn't want us to go to the moon, and that is that they might find out about the veil. Now, Jimmy Paine doesn't mention anything about the veil, or as far as like, what I was talking about, where Azrael said that they have an agreement with the underworld to hide what's out in the sky, like in the night sky, and what we're seeing is just some BS projection. So the stars and the planets and everything that they're supposedly seeing, I mean, I'm not even going to begin to guess how they're doing it or say that I can confirm any of that. But if that's true, then that's another reason why they wouldn't want any further space missions, because if they're up there long enough or somebody talks to somebody, they're going to find out. And it makes sense if the Earth really is orbiting the tree of life. So if you looked out, and he didn't give any physical description of what that looks like, what the tree of life looks like, but he says that there was like a period of time in which the Earth makes a complete orbit around the tree of life. And I think that's an age, like what we might call, I don't know, some such thousands of years, whatever it might be, but a long period of time. And when you make a complete circle, that completes an age of some kind. And so we don't know what that might all look like, if that's true. But to me, that's another reason, if that's true, they don't want us to know what's there. And the reason they don't want us to know what's there is because if they could see that, it would bring into focus what the plot is here. You see, they don't want people to know that it's about souls being fooled, okay? That's why the process that God has designed here is so that we're born into a big play, a big lie. Kind of like the Truman Show, except that, you know, people have also been fooled who they sense that there is a lie, and then they get fooled into ridiculous stuff like the flat earth. But that's just to further confuse and you know, make everything difficult to see. But I believe what happens is, for the soul that makes that progression, okay? Remember I said the Isaiah 28, they make that successful progression, they will see what's going on. God will be able to reveal it into their mind. He'll show them the information and get past the illusions to where they start to see the truth. Because people who still believe a lie aren't making it. That's why I say about the importance of not closing your mind to paranormal information and being dismayed by it.